So this is Charlie. Let's talk for a sec about level two. As you can see, I've simplified while I've been testing for level two. I got rid of a lot of the NPCs so I didn't have to chase all the way around my board to get them. The goal is you can go up to level two when you've eaten all the NPCs. So when I was actually doing my work, I only had this one NPC here, but I threw in another one just to make this example a little clearer. So we've eaten that NPC, and then we come back and we get this one. And when we do, you can see we end up on the next level. And I made the level, different enough so that it was easy to see that I was on a new level, right? And because I think that's important to be able to see that you're clearly, so you're not wasting time trying to figure out where you are. But all the rules still work. You can't go through the walls. You can do all the stuff it's doing that you expect. It's just a little different world. So let's talk for a second about what this looks like in code. The key method is in control, and it's called check level. So in my animate, I do a check level over and over and over again. Each time, as each frame goes by, I see if we're ready for the new level. And if the NPC count is down to 0, then we're done. We're all set to go. And in particles, the NPC count is just a fairly simple method. NPC count, we just iterate over the core NPCs, and if any particular one is an NPC, and we use the is NPC method up here to determine it, then we push that count up higher, and then we return the count. So it's kind of a combination of checking for what is an NPC and what isn't, and we iterate through them. So there may be a faster way to do that, but that at any rate gives me my NPC count for now. And then if it is, well, let me explain this jobs done thing. I got tired. I talked to you first about main and making sure that inside of main that we didn't get going until we were sure that 3 had loaded. And so we did this require inside require trick to make sure that 3 was loaded before we started anything. And then inside of controls, I have another one. I do this load fog, and I pass in the name of each of the grids that need to be loaded because I want to make sure they're loaded before we start the game too. And so I load the fog first, and then I do the cubes and init cubes, and I say, when the fog's loaded, I say jobs done for fog loaded, and where that is in core. It doesn't matter how you keep track of this, but I've got an array of jobs here, and as each one gets done, I push it into my array, and when the length is 3, then I'm really finished. So then I can publish the event saying that the job is done. And I subscribe over here to this OK to start thing. And then when this method gets called, then I call animate. That way I'm sure that all 3 grids have been loaded before I start. Okay, so once we've got all 3 grids loaded, then we can come over here and we go through the game, we check level, we check the count until we see it 0. Then I pass in this jobs done, which has nothing else, no other purpose. This is a bit of a hack, but the job's done, what it does is it makes sure that if I say new level, right, when I call control, if I say it's set to new level, then core, the value in here, if it's new level, then I reinitialize my jobs because I'm going to start again. I'm going to have to load all the jobs again for the next level. Another thing that I do is I clear the TinyMap. I found sometimes there were little artifacts left on the TinyMap. So I come over here and do a clear TinyMap. I get the canvas, I get the context. I call clear rect and pass in my 0 and my 0 for the beginning of the rect, and then the canvas width and height, and that just clears the rect and makes sure there's nothing left over from the previous level on the TinyMap. So, you know, I'm referring to this map here. It clears it all together, the TinyMap. And then another thing we need to do is clear the buildings. You want to make sure that all of the buildings that existed get removed from the scene, and that the buildings array gets reinitialized to an empty one. This is the walls, the cubes, whatever you want to call them. It's the things, the blocks here that are form the walls inside of the maze. And that just wipes them all out, gets rid of them completely, so that we can start fresh without any of them around. Then I call load fog again, which loads the next level of my fogs and my grid and my NPCs. The, you know, like here was my NPC with a very, very simple one. And if I just got rid of this too, and oops, hitting the wrong key, obviously. If I just got rid of the, sorry, I'm sitting here in the dark. I shouldn't do this. If we get rid of the 2 there, then we've only got 1 item on that first level, which makes it very, very easy for us to do our test. I got rid of 1 too many zeros, didn't I? There we go. Now we're back. And then over here, and then the grid, the second level grid, you can see I put a lot of zeros in it to give us some more open spaces so that you get, you know, more open areas in the grid. And then, and the only other thing left to do at that point is just move the camera back to the beginning position, right? So you get the object which is wrapping the camera, and you set its position back to 1, 1. It's just, you know, the initial place. And we could, as in many cases here, there's many things we could do to improve this. The point is just to get it working for now. And we're not done by any means. But we do have this much going, so that when we're out in the real world, if I haven't broken anything, then we can come. Now there'll be just this one guy. We come up to him, boom, and then we're here in the new world, and we can start moving around in this new world and see what happens out here. And so it's kind of a nice thing. All right, so that's all I got going right here for now. And that's all I wanted to show you. Make sure you understood just a little bit about levels. I think one of the more important parts of this was this whole, let's make sure everything's loaded before we start. Again, you could maybe come up with a slightly more elegant way to do this than this. But the point is, just let's make sure all the grids are loaded before we call animate and start the process. And then that same thing happens again, just to be clear, on check level, because I go through them all again, and again it calls this method, this subscribe method will get called again, and I redundantly call draw map and set it to the draw tiny map, which doesn't need to be done the second time around, but the call to animate is crucial for that second time around. And that makes everything work more or less, okay? So that shows at least one way for you to go to a new level. Okay, thanks now. And this kind of clears the way for us to move on to other subjects. All right, thanks, bye.